In Chapter 10, we're going to spend some time looking at types of relationships and a few theories on how we enter into relationships. When we think of friendship, we think of some degree of interdependence, but there is generally a mutual positive regard for one another in what we consider to be friendship. Love can be of many different types. We're going to spend some time on that in class as well. And in different interpersonal relationships, there's always a varying degree of closeness, caring, and commitment. For example, in a family, some of the characteristics of what we consider to be a family, people tend to have defined roles: father, mother, aunt, uncle, brother, sister. There's a recognition of each of the family members' responsibilities. There are people, a group of people who have a shared history and a shared future to some extent. Sometimes share a living space, and this can be a traditional family setup or not. Really, today is families are becoming more and more what we consider them to be, and they're highly individual. Work relationships exist of varying types. A couple that I want to talk about for a moment, a mentoring relationship, is generally a person who knows the job or has some type of wisdom and imparts this wisdom on people who might be newer at the place of work or newer into this particular job or career. Networking is getting to know people, getting to help each other out, and inevitably there can be romantic relationships that grow out of spending a certain number of hours with each other. As recently as the 1970s, John Allen Lee came up with 6 types of love. And this is an interesting, these are interesting because they've pretty much been accepted as describing the types of love that we experience. There are many different types. So these are in no particular order, and we're going to talk more in depth about these in class. But one type of love is eros. Now, these are the Latin names on the left in gold. Eros represents a type of love that has to do with an ideal of beauty, sexuality, and it might include infatuation, really idolizing the object of your love. That's eros. Perfection might also be part of that. Certain high standard and ideal. Another type of love is ludus. Ludus sees love as a game. It's fun, it's entertainment, it's exciting. Storge, on the other hand, sees love as friendship, peacefulness, a contentment, a love for the other person that is contentment, basically. Storge love is closely associated with friendship love. Mania is seeing love as an obsession. You're either really up, really excited, really happy about the relationship, and it's all consuming, or you're depressed about it, and it's like your whole world centers around the other person. This is mania. Pragma sees love, this is the type of love that's very practical. I love this person because we live near each other, or I love this person because he's going to be a good father when we have children. I love this person because he's responsible, that kind of thing. And then there's agape love that is selfless love, very compassionate. the other person comes before oneself. There are many theories on why and how we enter relationships of any type. So let's just look at a few of these. One theory is known as the attraction theory. This theory says that we tend to gravitate to people who are similar to us. Another aspect of the attraction theory might say that people get together because of proximity. For instance, we live next door to each other, so we became friends. Or we're on the same shift at work. Proximity. We became friends. This also includes attractiveness, personality. We're attracted to people who have a pleasing personality, that kind of thing. So the attraction theory can cover all of those. Oh, also people who tend to reinforce us, make us feel good about ourselves. That's part of attraction theory too. So this is one theory as to how relationships may get started. Another theory that works sometimes between people is known as a social exchange theory. In this theory, without realizing it, we see the profits that we get from it being equal to the rewards minus the costs. In other words, it's more or less a give and take. Does this relationship have something for me? Now, this sounds a bit selfish, but it isn't necessarily a selfish type of relationship. A good example of this might be people who have a business partnership. Is this going to work out for me? Sure, there's going to be some downsides. I'll have to give a little bit, but I'm also going to get something. And if those work out in my mind as being more or less, ending up more or less equal, then this is a social exchange theory. The equity theory is very closely related to the social exchange theory. This one's a little more comparison based between the two people. Rewards and costs are about equal to my partners. The relationship dialectics theory has actually 3 parts. And when we think about this theory, we consider the fact that anytime there's an interpersonal relationship between people, there are varying degrees and various times when both people or one person or the other wants to be more closed about something, wants to keep something to themselves, and other times when they want to have a certain amount of openness and they expect it from the other person. So relationship dialectics theory is all about a balance. Sometimes we want one and sometimes we want the other. The next part of this is autonomy versus connection. In a relationship, sometimes we want that connection with the other person, of course, but we also want some autonomy. We need time to be alone. So there's that balance that's necessary there. And then finally, novelty and predictability. It's nice to have predictability. It's nice to have a routine in some ways on some things, but we also like to mix it up a little bit. And different people can have different desires as far as how much autonomy they want versus how much connection. And of course, you can imagine if they don't match up, at least most of the time, between two people, that might create a problem. Relationship rules theory holds that we see as individuals, we see in our minds that there are specific rules, friendship rules. What do we expect of a friend? What do we expect of family members or certain family members? What do we expect of our significant other, our husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend? For instance, friendship rules. If you broke up with someone, would you think it was all right if your best friend started going out with that person? Most people would probably say no. That's a good example of a friendship rule. What kind of friend is this? If that's one of your friendship rules, you would say that. Well, my best friend's going out with my ex? No, no, no. That is not something a friend would do. That type of thing. Interpersonal relationships, as you can imagine, have both advantages and disadvantages. Think about some of the advantages and then think about some of the disadvantages.